Want red beans and rice that taste real nice? Ask Corey, he got the story. Want to make lasagna better than your mama? Ask Corey, he got the story. Want blackened catfish to be your main dish? Ask Corey, he got the story. Want to make gumbo without all the mumbo jumbo? Ask Corey, he got the story. Want a king cake that ain't no fake? Ask Corey, he got the story. Want to make a poor boy that'll bring your mouth joy? Ask Corey, he got the story. Corey Rocan, Food 411.
My kids often ask me, Dad, why is your food so good? And I say, well, it's because I cook with love. And they say, cook with love? What does that mean? Well, cooking with love from me and my family means that you go to the grocery store, you take your time, you look at the ingredients, you seek out the perfect ingredients, you get the best meats, you get the best produce, the best recipes, styles, techniques, and you come home and you take your time. Instead of chopping all your stuff in a food processor, you take your time and chop it up just right. And talking about meats, you go to the grocery store and you buy your meat and you get it home and it looks beautiful. You take it out of the pack and you flip it over and guess what? There's a bunch of fat everywhere. What I've found is at your local butcher shop, these people produce their meats with love. Most of your butcher shops will get their meat from a specific farmer or town or state for whatever it is that they're looking for. And then when they get it and they butcher it, they cut it off and they take their time. It's just beautiful. It's just made with love for me. In this episode, I wanted to make a gyro. I love gyros, but to make a gyro, you're normally supposed to have a vertical spit, they call it. And a vertical spit is, it's like a rotisserie, but it's vertical. And what they do is they have the metal barb in the middle, and then they cut the meat flat, season it on both sides, and then they just keep putting it on the steak, and then they cook it vertically, and then you slice it off. I wanted to figure out, could you kind of do it with the lamb without having a vertical spit? Because I want to make this at home. I want to make the cucumber sauce, I want to make the lamb, everything from home, just like you can do. Everything that I do on this show, you can do at home. This was an experiment to see if we could do this. I teamed up with my local butcher, who I love, and he said, yeah, we can do that. He invited me over to show us how to cut it up and how to prepare it and get it ready for the perfect gyro. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to our local butcher and he's going to show us, his name's Solomon from Fleming Island Choice Meats. And if you're in this area, this place is the bomb. He's going to show us how to prepare this and we're going to make the perfect gyro. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This has been a blast to make. And this gyro really is the bomb. Sit back and enjoy. Well, here we are at my favorite meat market, Fleming Island Choice Meats. Solomon here is our butcher, and he's going to show us how to prepare the lamb so we can make the gyros, whatever you want to call it. So, Solomon?
Okay, well, what we've got here is a semi-boneless leg lamb. What you're kind of doing is almost more like an authentic shawarma, because what they would do is layer the meat and then put the seasoning in between each layer. So to be able to do that while you roast it, I'm going to show you how to butterfly it. That way you can season the inside and then tie it back so when you roast it, it's infused with all the flavor.
Awesome. So it'd be kind of hard to do it the other way with layered, because you'd have to have one of those vertical.
Right, and most people don't have access to a vertical spit, so this is really the easiest way to get around that while, keeping it authentic. So with any piece of meat, this is basically a ham, but on a lamb. What you're going to do is just sort of look for the seams, and you can sort of feel around and see where they are without actually having to cut into it. So you'll just take a fillet knife and sort of cut through that skin. And a lot of times people want to trim a lot of the fat and the silver skin off.
Yep.
But in this type of preparation, you really kind of want to leave it, because as you roast it, and you get a little char on the outside, a little bit of rare on the inside, it's sort of the blend of textures that really make it really good.
Okay.
So you're just going to sort of...
Is the fat going to give it... I know that lamb sort of has like a gamey flavor to it. Would taking that fat off reduce some of that flavor?
No, not really. I mean, the fat's not where the gaminess is going to come from, and really with most domestic lamb, that gaminess is barely noticeable, especially if you're using, Mediterranean or seasonings, because it really sort of complements the meat. So it's not like venison or goat, for example. It's really a mild flavor, and I almost wouldn't even call it a gaminess, but just sort of more of a minerally flavor.
Okay.
So once you sort of get in there, you can just sort of feel around, and you'll see where the splits in the meat are, because there'll be different fibers in between.
Looks like he's done this a few times.
So you're going to do, and again, you can sort of just pull on the meat a little bit, and it'll separate a little bit itself, and you don't want to go all the way through.
Where does this lamb come from?
This is actually Australian lamb. You can get it domestically. You can, for whatever reason, the Pacific, they produce a lot, mainly because it's really expensive to graze cattle there. So they started raising a lot of lamb.
Okay.
So once you sort of get it opened up like this, what you'll be able to do is take this now and rub it with, olive oil and the seasonings you're going to do.
Yep.
And once you get it all coated real good, you can let it marinate for a couple hours to sort of get the flavor in there real good. And then you're just going to take it and then basically roll it back up and tie it and roast it whole. And I'll show you a knot that you can use to do that. So if you can't get the knot, you can just do a granny knot. You're going to take one length over, put it over your 3 fingers, back under, and you're just going to turn and grab it through the middle. And then you always pull straight up until it tightens a little bit, and then back towards you. And then you do a little granny knot around the string. And now you got it. And you'll do that in a couple more places. That way the knots are all in the same place. So when you go to trim it off after roasting, it's nice and uniform. And there you have it. Now you'll have that able to roast, and you're good to go.
Well, thanks, Solomon. That is great. I think this is going to be a great party, and I really appreciate you taking the time to show us how to properly butterfly this piece of lamb meat to get ready for an authentic gyro.
All right, enjoy.
Thank you.
Now, what we're trying to accomplish here today is a gyro that you can make here at home. Not something that you have to have the specialized vertical spit or take days and days and days to make. This is something that is intended to be delicious and fun. They have a good taste of a gyro at home without having to do all the fancy stuff. The first thing we want to do is get our tzatziki sauce going. In the United States, sometimes it's called cucumber sauce. Tons of recipes out there for this. The authentic Greek method uses wine and filtered yogurt and all kinds of crazy stuff. But we're going to use more of an Americanized version of it. Still very, very yummy. So first thing we want to do is take about 24 ounces of some sort of a plain yogurt. Right? Would it be applicable to use Greek yogurt? I think so. So we're going to take about 24 ounces, 3 cups. All right. We're going to take the juice of 1 lemon. Remember to Get those seeds out of the way. And then we're going to use about a tablespoon of fresh mint. Most modern grocery stores you can get the mint nowadays. I'm lucky enough to have a neighbor that grows it. So Stephanie, thank you for the fresh mint. Chopped very, very, very finely. And then one decent sized cucumber, peeled, cut in half, and then take a spoon and just scoop out all the seeds. And then chop it as finely as you can. There you have that. And then salt and pepper to taste. I'm using kosher salt. And fresh cracked pepper, brown pepper. The reason why we're making this so early is this is one of those sauces that's kind of, it's really needed as kind of the star of the party. And if we were to serve this right now, it won't taste very good. The mint, the cucumbers, the vinegar, well, the lemon juice, all has to marry in there and just kind of go to the party and everybody get accustomed with one another. So we just mix this up real well. And we're just going to put this in the refrigerator while we work on the lamb. Alright, so now the next step is to make our rub. I took a whole head of garlic, took each toe and split it in half. Half of it we're going to use to stuff the lamb, the other half we're going to make a paste. So this is half peeled, and I've got a spoon here. I'm just going to kind of squish it and add a little bit of salt to it. And what I want to do is I want to try to make a paste. Alright, now that it's kind of squishy, I took some fresh oregano. This is what I started with, and I put about 3 or 4 of these and finely chopped into here. I'm going to mix this with my garlic and a little bit of salt. Kind of mix that together. This is that Mediterranean flavor that Solomon was talking about that pairs well with the lamb. Alright, I'm going to get this in my mixing bowl. I want to take the juice of 1 lemon. Never use your fingers to catch the seeds. And the last thing I'm going to use is 1 cup of olive oil. If you've seen some of my other shows, I've told you to be very careful about buying olive oil. Almost all the olive oil on the shelves is extra virgin olive oil. It will burn in this process. So you want pure olive oil. Get ourselves 1 cup of this. Alright, put a little more, won't hurt anybody. Alright, mix this up. Now it's time to go get the lamb. This is the piece of lamb that just a few minutes ago Solomon put in the twine for us. So I cut the twine, washed it, dried it, rolled it out. Now the next step that I saved you a couple of minutes of watching is I cut slits down into the meat. Like right here. See how I'm cutting the slit down? Opening the meat up. So like we talked about the vertical spits, where they're horizontal, stack. Every time you slice a piece of meat off, you've got flavoring. So I'm kind of doing the opposite. I'm cutting these slits so I can get the seasoning inside of there, so when we cut it, we get the same effect. It's kind of like a little trick.
Alright, so remember the other half of garlic that I was talking about? I just sliced it into thin slices. Okay? Here. Just thin slices. And I'm just going to put them in these slits. Don't worry about it. No rhyme or reason to it. Oh, and this marinade that we just made a second ago, I did add a little salt and pepper to it. After I cut the camera, I realized I needed a little salt and pepper. But you know, I don't tell you guys how to salt your food, so that's to taste. I just put a little bit, because we already put a little bit for the garlic when we made a paste out of it, so I just added a little bit more. Alright, just kind of sparingly, here and there, a little bit of garlic. Taylor, you can fast forward. Alright, so now that we've got this flavor throughout this beautiful cut of meat, now we've got our marinade. Alright? The oregano, the salt, pepper, the fresh olive oil. You want to get it in there as much as you possibly can. The bulk of this is going to be on the inside. Remember, we're mimicking the way they do it in Greece today with the vertical spits. So the only way that we're going to be able to do that is to get as much flavor as we can in between each of these cuts of meat. Look at that. Whew. It's bringing tears to my eyes. This is beautiful. This is really beautiful. Alright. What we're going to do is we're going to roll this back up, and then using the knots that Solomon taught us, we're going to reconstruct this, and then we're going to rub the outside. Alright, so let's do like Solomon showed us. Let's wrap this around. Like so. It's kind of slippery. 3 fingers, twist. Okay. Just kind of pull it tight. Oh, and my granny nut. Okay, we'll do 4 of these. Alright, so this thing has been marinating for about 2 hours. So now what we did is heated up a Dutch oven, really hot, and we're going to sear it on each side. If you watch my prime rib episode, it's about the same thing. You just want to brown each side to get the whole outside brown, kind of seal in those flavors. Alright, as you see, it's almost done. Look at that. As you can see, this is the color that we're looking for. We're going to brown it all over just like this. Alright, now that we brown this thing, what we're going to do is put the fat side up, so as it cooks, the fat will melt down into the meat. Just like we did a prime rib. Now we're going to take our temperature gauge, and we're going to stick it right into the middle of this thing, where it's the coolest. And we're going to put this in a 375 oven until it reaches 130 degrees. That's going to take, depending on the size of the meat that you have, probably about an hour and a half. If you've got a really big piece, it'll take 2 hours. So we'll stick it in there, we'll pull it out when it gets to 130, and then we're just going to tent it, let it cool down. Alright, 130 degrees. We just pulled it out of the oven. Going to cut the butcher's twine off of this thing. Gosh, it smells delicious. And it looks beautiful. So you've got all those flavors inside of this thing. And we're gonna cut it off just like you would, because remember we cut those slivers in there and all that flavor's in there. So when we cut it this way, each cross section has flavor in it. Alright, so we sliced off a little bit, very thin slices. And put this in pita bread, and I just put it in the oven for a couple minutes just to soften it up a little bit. You see I put a piece of aluminum foil underneath it. You'll see why in just a second. Take a couple of these thin strips, okay, and we chopped up some lettuce. And diced up some tomatoes. And then the cucumber sauce that's been sitting in the fridge, you can now start to taste the mint in it. Okay. See? Now what we're going to do is we're going to roll this up. That's fine. That's what the foil's for. Take it. You serve it like this. And this is how you would serve it. As you can see, that is a perfect gyro. So, if you'd like to take a bite. Yummy? All right, until next time. See ya.